Afternoon, everybody. How we doing today? First time in a number of days here in Greater Cincinnati, Ohio. We've even seen a cloud in the sky. And we welcome you, as always, to Dialed In. I'm Tom Brenneman, joined by Luke Brenneman and our contributor slash producer extraordinaire, Casey McAllister. Our show is presented by UDF and Encore Technologies. We come your way twice a week. Just to refresh you now on everything, Mondays, right after 9 o'clock on Chatterbox Sports. We post later in the day on the Believe Network. And then on Thursdays, here at right after high noon, following off the bench, you can find us. Go to YouTube/Chatterbox Sports page. You can download us anytime, anywhere. Just download and search for Dialed In with Tom Brenneman, and you're dialed in. We'll get to the buoys here in a minute. Bengals are back at it this Sunday. They welcome the Las Vegas Raiders. That still sounds weird to me. Las Vegas Raiders. 1 p.m. kickoff at Paycor Stadium. Cincinnati is more than a touchdown favorite in the game. The Raiders might be the most injured team in the NFL this season. They've lost a quarterback. They've lost 5 defensive starters on defense. They have multiple injuries along their offensive line. The Bengals, meanwhile, have some issues of their own on offense. We still don't know yet for sure about Orlando Brown or T. Higgins. Brown played in spurts last week. Higgins not on the field again last week. And say this for the Raiders, okay? Despite having 5 starters that have gone down on defense, they do have the 11th ranked defense in the league so far in yards allowed. Now, they rank near the bottom of the league in scoring defense. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the offense turns it over or gives them brutal field position to work with. Gardner Minshew, remember him? Guy that lives in a trailer, whatever it is. He's the Vegas quarterback after initially winning the job, then losing the job to Aiden O'Connell. He's now hurt. And boys, the bottom line is this is the season for the Bengals. It seems like we've said that a lot. But you lose this game and you're done. I mean, you're D-U-N done. Win, and I guess you're kind of back, in the hunt a little bit. You're still 1 game under 500 with the Ravens around the corner next. Fellas, your thoughts, concerns about this coming weekend for the Bengalis. Luke, good afternoon. How's everything, my man?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to see that you picked up mom's glasses to do the show in today. But when we look at the Raiders-Bengals matchup, I think that you just have to look at it as pretty much 1 game at a time. I was upset last week or earlier this week on the show talking about Joe Burrow saying, let's win 7 of 9. That's doable. Why don't you just go out and take it 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time? That's something that the head coach of the Indiana Hoosiers, who are 8-0, Kurt Cignetti, says, you don't stay the same. You either get better or you get worse. And he says you have to stack day after day. And I think that's the mentality that the Bengals need because they need to get better. It's not just like something's not clicking right now. They're just not that good. And it really does choke me up to say that. So, yes, we're touchdown favorites. We're at home. It's a good spot. Let's get a home win. I don't even know if I can say let's get some momentum, but it's going to be a quick turnaround before Thursday Night Football. I don't want to look ahead that far. The Raiders, they're not very good. So, I mean, this week is everything you need to know. It's win or go home against a team that you easily should beat if you don't want to go home already. So if they lose to the Raiders, phone it in and quit. But I think they'll take care of business on Sunday.
All right, Casey, any of your thoughts or anything that worries you, concerns you, you're excited about in terms of the game this week?
Ooh, Tom, I'm with you on the idea that it's a win or go home mentality. And that's going to be pretty much the mentality for the rest of the season, it feels like. You only
Can I interrupt real quick, Casey? Casey,
Yeah.
can I interrupt? What in the hell are you wearing?
I'm wearing jelly. Elliot's wearing peanut butter. We're peanut butter and jelly. We're a duo.
So this is in honor, I'm assuming, for Halloween. Are you walking around your neighborhood just like that tonight? You don't have kids, but there'll be kids knocking on the door of your beautiful estate with Alexandria there and Mason. Are you wearing that when you answer the door?
No, I will not be wearing this when I answer the door. I will be probably handing out candy in a different location. I go over to my in-laws and hang out with the girls, my nieces, and do
Okay.
Halloween with them. but I will not be wearing this. This is just for the show. And I kind of like it. It's a pretty clever costume.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You were saying about the game and must win.
Yeah. Bengals. It's not just this game. It's every game going forward for the most part is in a must-win situation. They can't afford to lose really any AFC games moving forward, and they don't have very many NFC games left. I think they played the Dallas Cowboys at some point, but regardless, they play the Raiders this weekend, and then they turn around on Thursday night and play the Ravens. Unfortunately, I would say take it one game at a time, but they can't. They're literally cannot afford to do that because of how tight this turnaround is, considering that the Ravens are on Thursday Night Football. So it's a really tough situation to be at right now. You're 3-5. You're in a win or go home situation, and you got 2 games so close back to back. The Raiders, they're banged up, like you said. They should take care of business versus the Raiders. But I will say a very key matchup here that I'd like to point out before we go any further about talking about this game. Max Crosby, dynamic playmaker on the edge, and Orlando Brown Jr. probably not playing this week. I think that's a really big deal for this Bengals team. The offensive line has gotten worse as the season's progressed, and that's not a matchup I'm looking forward to. I think that could be a really, really big deal for this Bengals team, but we'll talk more about it here in a minute.
Okay, you said something that piggybacks off something Luke said last week, which I've really thought a lot about. And Luke, I thought this was a very interesting observation on your behalf about how when Burrow came out last week and said, winning 7 of the next 9, his words were doable. And you brought up the fact, when's the last time you heard anybody talking about winning 7 of the next 9 rather than just, and you can say it's, player speak, coach speak, or whatever. But the bottom line is it is rare to ever hear anybody start talking about winning X number of games over the next number of games rather than just the next game. And I'm sure Burrow's just focused on the next game. I mean, he's a savvy dude and a smart dude, and he gets it. But I've really paid particularly close attention to different interviews with different coaches in different sports and players this week, just based on what you said last week. I didn't hear one guy for the New York Yankees or Aaron Boone sitting there coming out and saying, we got to win the next 3 in a row, right? Before they lost last night, it's over. But they're all saying, hey, we just got to worry about this next one. And the Bengals aren't good enough to be worrying about 7 of the next 9, are they?
No, I mean, the way they're playing right now, I don't think that they should participate in the next 7 of 9 with the effort we've seen through the first 8 weeks. The issue that I found with it was Twitter kind of exploded and said that it looked like Burrow had a look of defeat, and it felt like using the phrase doable was in a way saying we could do it, but we're probably not going to do it. And I'm not here to interpret what Joe has to say. To be completely honest, I find a little bit of guts in it. I think that a lot of professional athletes, especially quarterbacks, are almost media trained like politicians, where they're never really going to tell you how it is. Joe Burrow told you how it is. He's like, we have to win 7 of 9. Most people won't even refer to it. And I think it would be a lot more frustrating if Joe, sitting there with 3 wins through 8 games, is saying, oh, I think we're just going to go one day at a time, and you don't really see anything out of him. I think he's been a little more opened up this year, and in the past, when he opens up, it's when they beat the Chiefs in overtime, and he's on top of the world. So he's in a rare position right now, and I think this week is a huge bounce-back spot because you are turning over to that quick week on Thursday Night Football. It's kind of a 1-2 punch that can either get you back on your feet or completely knock you out for the Bengals, and I'm really interested to just see the effort in regard to how they can respond.
We talked about this last week about the trade deadline. And give the Enquirer, give the credit where it's due. They have, in essence, made 3 trades over the last 30 years, 3 of them, 40 years. They got Charlie Joyner, one of the great receivers in the history of the NFL. They tried to trade, you may remember A.J. McCarron, but somebody messed up the paperwork on that deal when they were going to send him to Cleveland. And then they made the deal when they traded Carlos Dunlap in 2020. They got nothing in return, and they weren't expected to get much in return. But do you guys feel like, and Casey, I guess I'll start with you, do you feel like that the Bengals ownership or front office has thrown in the towel on this season if they don't make a trade? Now, look, I know they haven't made many, hardly any, but, desperate times call for desperate measures. Have they thrown in the towel on the season if they don't make some kind of deal to improve the pass rush, the offensive line, or the defense in general?
So this is an interesting question to answer because I don't think that anyone in the building will believe that they have given up on the season if they don't make a move. But I will say that this last interview with Joe Burrow and talking about one of the reporters asked him, have you seen these other teams make moves? The Bills, the Ravens, these top teams in the AFC make moves to improve. And Joe Burrow says, that's not my job. It's not my job. He's asked, should the Bengals make a move? It's not my job to look for those, to improve the team. It makes me feel like that they are not doing their due diligence to do a good enough job to at least attempt to make the team better. There were deals out there that I feel like were no-brainers for this team to make. The Josh Uche one makes a whole lot of sense to me. Deontay Johnson, the Ravens are actually gaining draft capital out of that if he walks away this season. Like, those are all moves that just, they make too much sense for these teams, and the Bengals refuse to get out of their own way. They don't want to be the team that improves another team, that gives them the capital to make a different move, but they're handicapping themselves. Like, I just feel like, in my perspective, if they don't make a move, whether it's a small move to increase the depth on the offensive line or defensive line, whether it's a big move to go get a star player to help improve the defense, it will feel like they have given up, that they don't truly believe that they're all in on this season. And that, to me, is just inexcusable. Now, the entire organization, they probably feel like they've done everything that they can. We don't know. We don't know if they're making phone calls at all. We don't know if they're in talks with anyone. But just from an outsider's perspective, looking in, it really feels like, Tom, that they've kind of given up.
Luke, let me ask you a question. You're a young fan, but you are a hardcore fan. If the Bengals don't make a trade, and let's just say hypothetically for a second, and maybe you'll say, I don't feel this way, and if so, that's fine. But let's just say hypothetically that says to you they've thrown in the towel on the season, or they don't care about getting this season straightened out 8 games into it. Does that affect whether or not you continue to root for the team?
Not at all. I'm a lifelong Bengals fan. I think an organization like the Bengals, a lot of fans are lifelong no matter what happens. This is who we are, and it almost makes it more special when you do win, and as frustrating as it may be, you don't have the luxury of being a Los Angeles Dodgers fan, and your team is going to go spend $1 billion and get all the big hitters and really do everything on every level to make that big game. So I think there's something special about that. I don't know if it's the city or just the community of Bengals fans, even the people who watch our show. I mean, we're all diehard fans at the end of the day, and we all love the city just as much as we love this football team, no matter who's playing. So I don't think it's going to affect how big of a fan I am. It's more of just the idea of, if we're going to be in the situation where we do have a window, where Cincinnati can be good, where Cincinnati should be good, then please, by all means, at least give us your best effort and put that foot forward to ensure success. And if it doesn't happen, then so be it. Then people are going to look at you guys, whether it's Duke Tobin, the Brown family, everything else, and say, hey, you put it on the line, and it didn't work out. Joe Burrow threw a pick in the postseason, but we were there. We fell short in the AFC Championship game. I think we're all just dying for that taste one more time. And the scariest part is that it looks like that taste may be fading the way we're going the last 2 years.
It's really interesting you say that because I've thought about that a lot the last couple of days. Burrow made the comment, and rightfully so, and I think there's a level of truth to this that he says, "Hey, as long as I'm the quarterback, the window's still open." And I think we all feel that way because he's so great at what he does. But look, I'm the one that's been talking about this, and I hope that I'm proven wrong. I'm the one that's been talking about this now for multiple months, if not a year. How before Burrow gets here we're doing one of these, the franchise Super Bowl, AFC Championship game. Step down. Then Burrow's hurt, don't make the playoffs. Now Burrow's back. You're 3-5. Now Higgins might be leaving, probably is leaving at the end of the year. I start saying to myself, and the offense isn't the same without Higgins. I mean, they're just not. They are not the same without Higgins, and that cannot be denied. They're not. Chase is not, and they are not. Higgins is a great player, but it's a shame because you can't get the guy on the field. But I feel like this window, I don't know why, but maybe it was just because the way I felt about the game last week, because they were just beaten so badly. I mean, they were just humiliated for a quarter and a half and got bullied and all that kind of thing. And it's made me wonder. The Reds have been in the never-ending rebuild mode, and the rebuild never comes to fruition. Based on this team's drafting the last number of years, I'm wondering if this window is starting to really close, and do I have confidence, or do you guys have confidence in that window staying open? Luke, do you?
Well, I would go as far as saying that window in specific, as in the Super Bowl, the AFC Championship, I think that window is shut. And I think the idea is you have to find a new door. Because at the end of this year, the way we're going right now, let's look at next season. And I'm not saying let's tunnel vision and talk about next season every day, but just stop for 1 second and think about what next season looks like. To me, I see, first of all, we don't have Mixon anymore. Higgins is gone after this year. A lot of pieces on that defense that were the core parts of that defense are gone. I really look at Jesse Bates too, because it felt like he just made so many big plays game after game throughout those postseason win streaks. And now you're left with Joe and Jamar. That's really what it is. You drafted Burton. You have some young excitement. Obviously, we hope to hang on to Trey Hendrickson. But at the end of the day, I think for the sake of the Bengals winning football games, you do have to reset and say, we have Joe, we have Jamar, they're locked in on deals. Now let's go from here and play winning football, because I do think that window in the past is done. And if you keep trying to reopen that locked window, it's only going to get worse, because that's what we're seeing this year with so many just old, slow, lack of competition, especially on the defensive side. So many injuries week after week. It's like if the Bengals had one really bad injury that a lot of teams have seen this year, it would just be a gut punch. And we're hanging on to offensive linemen right now, but I don't know. I think that door is closed, and we have to find another one to open with Joe and Jamar for the future.
All right, back for a minute to the Raiders. Let's look at some of their numbers this year. They rank 28th in the league in total offense. They rank 18th in passing, and that's with two different quarterbacks. Their run game has been non-existent. 79 yards per game, 31st in rushing, and they're 26th in points. They only average 18 points a game. Now, as I mentioned, on defense, they're pretty good. 11th in overall defense, 7th against the pass, 19th against the rush, and way down the track in points allowed, again, because of the offense being so bad, turning it over, bad field position, etc. They do have talented running backs. Madison's a good running back. The White kid was good last year. He's had a hard time adapting to this new offensive scheme this year. And we know that by and large, teams that can run it well have had success against the Bengals. The Bengals, their defense so far ranks 24th in the league against the run, and they're 23rd in points allowed at 25. Now, a couple of those have been blow-up games. But, Casey, look, Gardner Minshew is a guy capable of having a big game any given week. He's proven that he's a very good backup. He's proven that he can have spurts as a good starter. But by and large, he's a backup quarterback. I mean, if the Bengals can't stop these guys, they can't stop anybody.
No, and I think that's why this game is so important, Tom. I mean, I think that the like we said at the beginning of the show, from here on out, it's win or go home. They gotta just keep winning. This Raiders team, they should be able to beat them. I know you hate doing this old adage. Last year, this old Bengals team. Well, last year they played Gardner Minshew on a team that was probably much better constructed in the Colts, and they just shellacked them. They demolished them. And I think, I'm not saying that they are capable of doing something similar again, but it feels like this is an opportunity for both sides of the football to get right. This is a get-right game for them. They are capable of doing it. I need to see it. I need to see some flashes of what they used to be able to really get back in on this team. But like I said before, the matchup with Max Crosby and Orlando Brown Jr. not being there, that's a big blow to this team. That's something to look out for this game. That's a big part of why that defense is so good, Tom. Makes me worried. Makes me really worried.
Yep. All right, let's get to our picks, if you would, boys. And Luke, you take it over from here. But before you take it over for this week's game, let's take a look at where we stand in the rankings so far this year and how we did last week. I can't read that name. My glasses, I'm using my wife's glasses. What's that name? Who's that name at the top?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. That's pretty impressive right there. There's not many professionals that are 9 games over 500 right now through this point. So I'm bummed that my name's not ahead of yours, but you definitely deserve it.
Okay.
I don't even think Casey's doing bad. Casey and I are hanging in there. I mean, this is a hard game. The best in the world hit it like 54%.
Well, it should be noted that Jacob picked last week. So Casey's 5-3 week is a little bit misleading. More than a little bit misleading. All right, let's get to it this week. Luke, take it away. Here we go.
All right, let's do it. You know the standings. You're in the lead. Start out with the game of the year, probably in college football so far. I know there's a lot of Ohio State love. It's the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions. This one is going to be epic. It is a road game for the Buckeyes in State College, PA. The spread's 3. I'm going to take Ohio State. It's a biased pick. I'm not necessarily a big Ohio State fan now that I go to Indiana, but I grew up an Ohio State fan, and I really want Ohio State to just have one loss come the matchup against Indiana in 3 weeks from now, because I think that has a game of the year or a game of a lifetime even for an Indiana student. I would love to play prime Ohio State. I also think Drew Aller is not ready for this big of a game. I didn't think he played well against USC at all. He led them to a comeback, though, and got a lot of credit for it. We'll see if Drew Aller's ready to go. I think that Ohio State defense is way too much.
Well, of course, there is a lot of debate as to whether or not Aller's going to play in this game. I'm with you overall on his game, though. He was this big 5-star guy, and I know it's only his second year as a starter, but I have not been impressed. The USC game, in fairness to the kid, it was impressive. They were down. He made plays when he had to, and they came back and won the game against a very average USC team. But Ohio State is 10-1 against James Franklin coached teams at Penn State. The only game Franklin beat Ohio State was in 2016. Ohio State has beaten them 7 times in a row, but 4 of those games were incredible. 2 of them, in fact, some of the most legendary epic games in the history of Ohio State regular season football come from behind wins. One of them with J.T. Barrett, when he scored 24 points in the fourth quarter to win the game. Ohio State did not look good last week against Nebraska. They have a major issue on their offensive line. They lost their starting left tackle for the year in the Oregon game and did not look good with his replacement, who now is hurt in the Nebraska game. But I still think Ohio State shows up to play. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I truly believe this is the single biggest game in Ryan Day's coaching career. This game right now. I believe that with all my heart and soul. You can say whatever you want about the Michigan games, the debacles the last 3 years, but they were able to get to the playoff or the championship game in those years. This is one of those deals where if they lose the game, there's a legitimate shot they don't make the college football playoff. Not for sure, but a legitimate shot. It would certainly eliminate them from being in the Big Ten Conference Championship game. I think the only other time that Day has had his back against a wall like this was going into the college football playoff game after they lost to Michigan, and everybody said they're going to get killed against Georgia. They showed up ready to play. They lost at the end, but they showed up ready to play. Ohio State covers in the win over Penn State. And Casey, I know where you're going.
Yeah, you know
You
where
live
I'm
in
going.
Ohio. You know, you pay taxes in Ohio, and you're going to be picking. Yep, there it is.
Yeah, I'm picking Penn State, Tom. I am a fan. I will say this about both teams. I'm not super confident in Penn State's ability to play a game where they can how do I want to explain this? I think that they can hang in there, and I think that they have the ability, and they've shown this year that they're able to come back from behind and kind of win a ball game, or when it comes to the nut cutting time, that they're able to make the plays when it matters. Ohio State struggled against Oregon, and they were right there in a position to win a ball game. Time expired, they lose the ball game. I'm not sure if they're capable of doing that against a high-leveled opponent like Ohio State, and that's why I think that the -3 is the key here. It's currently going up and up and up to, I think it's at -4 now. So
Okay.
that's why I would feel comfortable taking Penn State. I don't think they'll win, but I do think, like, if they get into a match where it's back and forth, I think Penn State can hang with them and find a way to cover this ball game.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right. Luke, take it away.
All right, we're going on to a really sneaky good game. If you don't heavily cover college football this year, this is a Pitt team who, very similar to Indiana, plays in a good conference, hasn't been great. They're undefeated. And then SMU, a really good offense, a program on the rise. But the biggest star is Pitt here. So when you look at that line, SMU favored by 7.5 is ridiculous. I mean, there is so much public money coming on Pittsburgh. This is one of those games where you bet on SMU. It's ugly. It's so many points. You would think that Pitt could arguably be favored in this game, but I'm going to lay the 7.5 with SMU. These guys don't miss on these lines. I think that the Ponies win by 2 touchdowns.
All right, Casey.
Ooh, yeah, I think I'm kind of with the same thought process that Luke is in right now. I just think that based off of what Vegas is showing us, what they're telling us, that SMU is the right decision here. It's an ugly one. I hate -7.5, but that's why I got to pick it. I don't have any faith in Pittsburgh whatsoever. I like SMU.
Well, why in the world would you guys not have any faith in Pittsburgh? They haven't lost a game. You know, I mean, it's like, now granted, has their schedule been knocked down, drag out, kind of like similar kind of thing to Indiana? But I mean, Pitt's pretty doggone good, man. Now their quarterback's a little nicked up. I've seen SMU in person this year, and that is definitely, Luke, you hit the nail on the head. That is a program on the rise, man. A lot of money. And they joined the ACC knowing they weren't going to get any of the ACC television money for 5 years. And they said, no problem. We're good. We're in. Lashley's an outstanding coach. But 7.5 for me, SMU's not Ohio State. They're not Alabama. They're not Georgia. Them being favored by 7.5 again in a game like this, to me, is way too much. Give me the Pitt Panthers. I got Pitt.
That's a square pick.
What does that mean?
Pick. You're a square. You're as sharp as a circle. That's just, trust me, that's a loser. If you remember Thursday Night Football last week,
you did. You called it. Yep.
There's a couple more of those this week, so I think I'm gaining some ground. If you start taking sucker picks like that, in about 4 weeks from now, that leaderboard's going to look a whole lot different. I'm starting to get some confidence over you.
All right. The second place teams are always the one that chatter. The first place teams just keep going. Go ahead.
All right, let's go to a first place team. And how about first place in the Big Ten, or at least a share of it? It's the Indiana Hoosiers. They go to East Lansing this week. 8-point favorites. The line opened at like 6.5, but Curtis Rourke is going to go. I'm not breaking that as like a beat reporter for the team. I just have a really good feeling about it. They say that the issue now with his thumb was that it was originally sliced on a helmet. That's what all the blood was in the game 2 weeks ago against Washington. But now it's the issue that it was also jammed. So he's just trying to work through it, get some reps. And with that line moving from 6.5 to 8, I think that's Vegas telling you they might know that he's going to go as well. Indiana's covered in every single game this year. I don't know how they don't cover this number. I will say, whatever Michigan State holds, I think it's like 75,000 strong. It's going to be packed. It's going to be easily the hardest place that Indiana has played all season. If you look at their schedule, they have played a ton of home games and have a really favorable schedule. I mean, they went on the road to the Lake temporary stadium in Northwestern, played a tough one, went out to Pasadena for the Rose Bowl. They don't have real fans out there. So Michigan State is going to be a big test. I'm going to lay the 8 with the Hoosiers, but this could be a little bit of a jump scare early on if Indiana doesn't get out to it once again, another hot start.
Case?
Yeah, I just think you got to ride the hot hand, in all honesty. There's so much money and all the bets are on IU, but it is almost like a no-brainer to me, honestly. I think IU is just very underrated right now. I just don't know much about Michigan State either. I feel like they're not I don't feel like they're very good this year. So I'm going to go with IU and roll with the hot hand.
Okay. For all the reasons Luke just gave, I'm going to take Michigan State here. I think that Indiana will win the game. But I am concerned about Rourke and how healthy he really is. I am concerned about how they respond to a crowd because you're right. This is a different animal than what they've seen so far this year by leaps and bounds, as you pointed out. I mean, this isn't like a little bit of a leap. This is a big leap. And this is the kind of thing that Indiana, if they want to be playing Ohio State as an undefeated team, this is the kind of thing that they've got to go out and accomplish. I think they win the game. Michigan State under Jonathan Smith, that program, there's no reason in the world they should not be a top 20 program every single year. They're nowhere close to that yet, but they're better this year than they've been the last couple of years. So I think that Indiana wins, but 8 points is a lot of points. I take the Spartans. But go Hoosiers, rooting for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Indiana's been a covering machine. People have made a fortune. That's an Indiana team who has not trailed for a minute of the season and has not given up a first quarter point in the season. So for gamblers, I would say that is a recipe for success when you never trail and you never give up a point in the opening 15 minutes. All right, let's move on. Next game. We're going to the NFL now. Let's start with the Bengals and the Raiders. I talked about the Bengals being 7-point favorites. That line opened at 8.5. It's all the way down to 7. So I think Vegas kind of caught themselves there when making that line. I never bet against the Bengals. I have no analysis. There's really given me nothing to tell you why the Bengals should cover in this game. I think that the Raiders are just bad. The Bengals might not be very good, but the Raiders are bad. They have all kinds of issues, obviously some injuries in there as well. If the Bengals can just double team Max Crosby on every single snap and just get a gritty win, I think that's how it's done. When it comes to covering this number, I think it's just going to have to be one of those fourth quarter touchdowns where you're bleeding the clock out. There's like 4.5 minutes left. You're up 7, and you punch another one in. You cover the number. I think the Bengals have it this week.
Casey?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Luke. There's no usually rhyme or reason why I always pick the Bengals, but I'm going to wear my orange-colored glasses. I think that this team should be able to beat the Raiders. I think that they can do it by 7. If it was sitting at that 8 mark, I'd be a little more hesitant. I might actually pull the trigger on the Raiders just because I think it's a large number, a large spread in the NFL. But 7, I'm okay with pushing here. If they ended up beating the team by 7, I'll live with it. So give me the Bengals.
Okay, I'm going to go with the Bengals too. I keep doing it. And, when I'm losing every week, it's mainly because of them. So, but I'll stick with them for one more week, and then we'll see how they look. They better win, or DUN. Phone it in. If they lose, we were talking about the trade deadline and acquiring. When is the trade deadline over, Casey?
It's the 5th.
Okay, well, if they lose this game, I'm starting to ship some guys out of town. I am. If they lose this game to go to 3-6, I am shipping guys out left and right and trying to get all the draft capital I can moving ahead to next year. That's if you trust the guys who are doing the drafting. But they lose this game, that's it. I'm picking them. All right, Luke, what's next? We got some good games this week.
Yeah, this is what I thought was a good game, but the number, given a lot of respect to the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens are 9-point favorites at home against the Broncos. The Broncos have surprised a lot of people. Ugly start, and they're getting hot. I don't think they're necessarily playing great football. They've played some really bad teams. So I think they're going to get punched in the mouth this week, but I still think they cover 9 points. I don't think the Broncos' defense is that bad. And this really all comes down to if Bo Nix can score, let's say, 17 points is going to cover the number. If they can put that up offensively. I think Baltimore's just firing on all cylinders, so they're getting respected a lot with this number for good reason. I think it's too many points. I'll take Denver and watch a movie instead on that one, or watch another game.
Yeah, Luke, I'm kind of with you on the idea that 9 is a lot in the NFL. This defense, this Denver Broncos defense, is really darn good. I know the Ravens have looked unstoppable, but this is a different defense that they're facing this time around. They haven't really played any tough defenses so far this season, except for Kansas City, and look what happened. They only put up 20 points. So if they could score 18 on a Baltimore defense that's been really suspect this season, I think you're right. I think they cover, and I think they can do it. So I'm going with Denver as well.
I'm going with Denver too. I mean, I got to tell you, just when I really want to get on the Ravens, sort of bandwagon, and I have a hard time putting them in the top 5 every week. I'll be honest with you. And they have had these kinds of losses like they had last week in Cleveland before. I mean, the Raiders early in the year. There's something that's starting to become borderline fraudulent to me about the Ravens, and I can't put a finger on it, but something is missing there. Now they're coming off a loss, so maybe that has them a little bit more focused. I still think Denver covers 9. Denver's got, like you said, Luke, they may not have played anybody, but they're having a good year, and they're gaining confidence every single week. And, now a rookie quarterback has 8 starts. So, yeah, tough environment. Yeah, good defense. No, not unbeatable team. They cover.
Yeah, I just don't. I totally agree. I don't really see the Broncos really ever getting blown out. I think that this is a good or a well coached football team with the defense they have, where it is too many points. But that could be a sucker pick too. That seems like a huge number, and I'm
Yep.
sure everyone's on it. Let's move on to easily the game of the week, at least in my opinion. I think both of these teams, as of right now, you can use the word Super Bowl contenders. It's the Packers and the Lions. That whole division is loaded. And the divisional games that we're going to get pretty much week after week inside of it are some of the best games we're going to see all year. Detroit, 3 and a hook. I think we all have to accept the Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFL right now, outside of the Kansas City Chiefs, or at least easily the best team in the NFC. I personally think that they've looked better than the Chiefs. But I'm going to go with Green Bay. I think at home in the divisional games, and I'm almost laughing at myself after hyping them up, but I think at home in the divisional games, I'm always going to take points. If that line got all the way up to 4, I would love Green Bay. I think Jordan Love has a lot more to prove this year. Yes, this Packer team is well over 500. Yes, they're playing good football, but I think Jordan Love has a monster game in him on Sunday, and he's going to need it to keep up with that Detroit offense. I think Green Bay and Detroit get into a huge shootout this week at Lambeau. I don't know who's going to win, but I'll take 3.5 points if I can get it.
Yeah, one of the key things here is the injury report on all these lines.
Yeah.
It says Jared Goff is questionable for the game. That's a little interesting. I didn't realize he was hurt. And also on the other side for the Green Bay Packers, Jair Alexander and Devontae Wyatt, they're both hurt, questionable for the game as well. So that's going to be interesting to look out for those lines. I'm going to follow the same logic that Luke is once again. I like Green Bay at home. I like them at Lambeau to be able to cover. I do think the Lions are the hottest team in the NFL right now, but I also think, too, at some point, the injury to Aiden Hutchinson is going to catch up with this team at some point. I just think that this is the time. I think this is where Green Bay kind of gets a leg up on them, and they're going to sit there tied for first place in the NFC North. So I'll go with Green Bay here.
Okay, well, I'm the outlier here. The golf thing is an ankle injury. They think he's going to be okay. He was just named the NFC's Offensive Player of the Month. There's a mojo going on in Detroit. They had it last year going, but it wasn't quite there yet. It is there now. And this is a team to watch at the trade deadline. I'm sure you guys have seen this. But the big story in the Detroit papers is the Lions are coming hard after Trey Hendrickson. Now, whether or not they can put that thing together after the injury to Hutchinson, whether or not the Bengals would be they'd be okay making that kind of a deal, who knows? But, I mean, this is a franchise that is saying, hey, look, a lot like the Bengals, we've stunk for so long that we are all in. And when we tell you we're all in, we mean we're all in. So I just think, and that's back to, I always talk about Chris Spielman. That's my shirt today. What would Sonny say? Sonny Spielman. Sonny Spielman. Another leader of men like Dan Campbell. I take the Lions. Lions are going to not only cover, they're going to win.
Well, they'd have to win to cover, but I get your point there. Let's move on. Bears and Cardinals. This is actually a pretty good game. The Cardinals have won a couple in a row. The Bears, I would hate to be a Bears fan. You should easily be 5-2 right now. But the Hail Mary is killer. I think Caleb Williams is really turning it on. He had 3 straight drives in the second half. The key has been the starts with him. The first half has been abysmal, but once he settles in, he's all right. For that reason, I think that the Cardinals do cover. I think the Cardinals are really hot right now. They're on a win streak. They've had some gritty wins. They haven't looked great. They're at home, pretty much a pick-em game with the Cardinals as 1-point favorites. I think there's a lot going in the Cardinals' direction here, and I do think that the public sees this game as an opportunity for the Bears to bounce back. But something that we see in the NFL that's really difficult is when you travel coast to coast. I know the Bears in Chicago, a Midwest, but going out to Arizona, that's a different time zone. I think it kind of sends them off a little bit. They were in D.C. last week. So all things going against the Bears, including the Hail Mary and luck of last week, I'm going to go with the red-hot Arizona Cardinals. They're going to get over 500 if they win. That's impressive.
Yeah, I'm also with you. I feel weird picking pretty much every single pick that you have, Luke, but I feel kind of similar. There's some sort of mojo about the Bears after losing the way that they did that usually results in some sort of collapse or a streak of bad luck or just bad play. That was abysmal. I mean, they should be 5-2, but because a player on the defense decided to just kind of goof off and smack talk fans, basically gifted them the touchdown that Commanders needed to win the ball game. It just is a bad vibe. It's a very bad vibe. I like Kyler Murray. I like the Cardinals. -1, they can win a game by 1. It's basically a pick 'em. So I like the Cardinals a lot here. And also, not to mention, I believe Montez Sweat, the Bears all-star edge rusher, he's questionable. Jaquan Brisker, their safety, questionable. Kyler Gordon, their corner, their second corner, questionable. Their defense is really banged up right now, so that's not good for them. Tom, what do you think?
I'm going with the Cardinals too. With all the knocks on Kyler Murray, and I think they are legitimate knocks, about how hard he works and how much time he put in the film room and all those kinds of things a couple of years ago. I think we're starting to see a payoff on some growth there. And what cannot be denied is when Murray is healthy, the Cardinals have generally been pretty good since he came into the league. So I think the Cardinals got something going on out there. And, their division is not the division it's been. There are good teams in that division. I mean, on any given week, the Rams can beat anybody. We've seen the Seahawks be able to beat anybody. We know about the Niners. When they're healthy, they are what they are. But that division is not as good as it's been. And I think Arizona is primed for the making of making a run at the postseason this year, and that means having a healthy Kyler Murray. Sorry, Oliver's going crazy back here. Yesterday was his birthday, and he's starting to shake off the effects of being out, having a few cocktails last night. So he's all agitated today. I take the Cardinals. Here we go, Cardinals.
That wraps up the picks this week. I think that something we didn't really touch on at all was the idea of Jonathan Gannon's doing a pretty good job in Arizona.
Yeah.
To have that roster is pretty ugly. I mean, he was thrown into easily the worst head coaching situation in all of the NFL, at least in my opinion. And he's hanging in there. We'll see how he does. I think he's a defensive guy. Like at root with this time with the Eagles, no, but I'm saying from the perspective of what Gannon brings as a head coach, I think he knows ball well enough to exploit a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams, especially on the road. So hopefully they game manage their way to covering for the sake of all three of us. If there's anything else you guys want to talk about, you can bring it up, but I think we should go to what could be the move of the weekend.
Yeah, it is. Let's go. What could be the move? You start us off, Lukey.
Okay, well, I'm going to East Lansing with the Indiana football Hoosiers. That's my move this weekend. I know Halloween weekend can be a big deal. I think I'm kind of happy that I'm escaping the whole thing because A, I hate dressing up in a costume, and B, I don't want to spend a bunch of money on costumes. So instead, I'm going to spend a bunch of money on gasoline and drive to East Lansing in one day as of early morning Saturday and get back well into the middle of the night on Sunday morning, Saturday night. But it'll be all worth it if the Hoosiers improve to 9-0. So I'm going with the rest of the guys that are beat reporters for IU Student Television. I think it should be a good time.
All right. Casey, how about you?
Yeah, my what would be the move is prepping for Athletes in Action tip-off. We're gonna be on TV. We're gonna be on Gray Media, which I believe is like Fox 19 here in Cincinnati, and we're gonna be covering 3 basketball games: a women's basketball game with Liberty and Valpo, I think, and then the men's will also play against each other, and then there's another game in there for Liberty again. It'll be a great time. It'll be one of our bigger steps here at Chatterbox that we've made. We're really getting professional with it here, and I'm very excited. That's going to be my move, prepping for Athletes in Action tip-off, Tom.
And a great organization, Athletes in Action. They've been around forever, and this is a big deal for Chatterbox. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Gray Media is one of the largest owners of television stations all over the country, and a number of their stations have agreed to pick up with Chatterbox Sports as the production piece of all this to do these 3 games. So, Casey, best of luck there, and we're really excited about it at Chatterbox. For me, the move is I'm one of the guys old enough, and there are a couple in the chat that are old enough to remember all the great basketball games played at the Carrier Dome in Syracuse. Luke, you and I went up there for one of your college visits. We could not get in the Carrier Dome that day. I've never been in it, so I'm going to call this weekend. Syracuse is hosting Virginia Tech, which actually is a very good game. 2 5-3 teams. Both with an outside shot. They would need some help to play in the ACC championship game, but both are having really good years. A win for either one makes them immediately bowl eligible after 9 games. And so I'm looking forward to just getting in the Carrier Dome. They don't call it that anymore, but just to check the whole place out and see what it's like. And so that's the move. I'm traveling to Syracuse. There's no easy way to get there, but good Lord willing, we get there safely and soundly and get back in one piece to Cincinnati, Ohio. All right, boys. Luke, have a great weekend. Safe travels up and back to Michigan State.
Thank you. A little bit of a trick or treat. I gave one on Thursday last week. I'll give another one. New York Jets tonight. They're going to beat the Houston Texans. Another one of those games. How the hell are the Jets favored? How are the Jets favored? I don't know. It's the Santa of Halloween. He's just dishing out free candy, a.k.a. money. Take the Jets. They win tonight. It's the same thing as last week with the Rams. I told you the Rams are going to win. It's a little trick or treat. I'll send you off with that. How you doing?
I don't like that pick. Casey, you like that pick a little bit. The Jets stink.
Tom, I don't get it. It's one of those things, like you said, Vegas, they know something's up. They know something's up, and they want people to buy in on the Houston being an underdog. I'm gonna probably smash Jets -2, and I won't look back. I won't question it, because I think that's what Vegas wants me to do. They want me to pick Houston. I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna pick Jets, and I'm gonna get my free money.
Okay, well, look, Chase and Fetters and Everett and some of these guys are all, they're all jumping on Luke's bandwagon. I'm not buying it. Chase says, thanks, Luke. Okay, well, we'll see if Chase, you're saying thanks on tomorrow or very late tonight, since that game is a Thursday night game. All right, hey, listen, for all you out there with young kids, trick-or-treaters, be careful. Keep an eye out on everybody. Weather looks like it's starting to get a little bit better. Hopefully there'll be no rain for that tonight. And we will be back here on Monday, 9 o'clock, to recap the Bengals and everything else. One thing I do want to get into with you guys next week, so I want you to start thinking about this a little bit. And the reason I didn't get into it today was because I still feel like I need a little bit more time to read about it. But and there's going to be a lot more that's going to come out. I am really fascinated by this whole Anthony Richardson thing in Indianapolis. You hear certain people say certain things, and now we're starting to learn a little bit more. But as far as just an organization's decision, now maybe it's only, for a little while, and, they say, well, he gives us a better chance to win, Flacco does. But this is a big deal. And I want you guys to think about that, and we'll circle back on Monday. Colts are playing over the weekend. We'll see how they do with Flacco at quarterback. They played better with Flacco than they have with Richardson. All right, we'll see you on Monday. Everybody have a great weekend. God bless. Look forward to seeing you then. Be well.